Hey friends, I had a wonderful getaway evening with Katie. We spent the night at this place called Ojo Santa Fe. It's basically a hot springs. Well, it's a not a true hot springs, but it's just like a spa that has hot pools. So it feels like a hot springs. Beautiful night. We had this conversation over dinner, which took both of us back to like it was just it felt like reconnecting with a part of myself and a part of her connecting with a part of herself, and just both of us kind of both being reminded of some of the things we share and some of our kind of initial enthusiasms that bonded us um, before we were even involved with each other in any kind of romantic way, just like what we shared as friends and what fascinated us and what we, the we came together during in a while we were studying and developing a creative craft, and that really it meant that we had this foundation of kind of a shared intellectual and emotional and creative um, body of ideas and just concepts. It was really and but with our lives where they are now, we often don't. That doesn't come online for us for long periods of time because of the way that our lives have each shifted and whatnot. So there was just a sense that we were both reconnecting with that, and it revitalized my enthusiasm for some things that I'm looking at, and it reminded me, like I'm looking at doing a teacher training program with my piano teacher Madeline right now, and connecting last night and thinking through just basically kind of like doing a survey of Katie and my shared experiences as students and teachers, sort of brought that piece into perfect focus. It was like, oh yeah, that's what this is. There was it sort of confirmed and affirmed that impulse in a really nice way. And so, yeah, it was just a lovely, lovely time. I think it gave us both just a little bit of a pause in which to glimpse something that doesn't always show up in our day-to-day life. It was really beautiful. And something else came up that's kind of in alignment with, or an outgrowth of what I was talking about yesterday, to do with aging. And I kind of, because I had said, I mentioned something yesterday, I believe, about Sadhguru talking about youth and the energy of youth, and how even though in youth we have this seemingly boundless energy, and especially as we get older, we look at young people and we see this incredible potential, and we sort of we notice the energy level of a 20-year-old and the vibrancy of that, and we and it's inspiring, because as we age, that energy level, we can maintain an incredibly high energy level, but by and large we have to cultivate it. As we get older, we really kind of have to be conscious about it. And whereas in youth, it's like it's just a given. It's just who we are and what we are, and so I came back to this idea of aging, and one of the things that Sadhguru said that I believe I mentioned yesterday was that youth is youthful energy has the unfortunate sort of, it comes at the expense sometimes of this massive encumbrance of compulsions. And that sort of really framed for me what it kind of means to elegantly age. And I think in some ways what kind of was coming up today is that the entire spiritual journey, really, you could almost summarize all spiritual progress as the process of liberating ourselves from compulsion, from unconscious behavior. And thinking of it that way, I don't know if it's helpful or not, but thinking of it that way, it brings me to a place where there's something so simple about that, right? There's something so, it's both incredibly profound and kind of potent, but it's also really simple. If spiritual progress is the process of gradually liberating ourselves from compulsion, from compulsive behavior, then we have a really clear yardstick for where we're at and for what direction we're moving. Because progress isn't always forward. Progress we can backslide in that. We can kick a habit, but then let it kind of grab hold of us again down the road. And there was just something about framing it that way that I think gave me a sense of, okay, this is a really clear, concise, direct, kind of a no-nonsense definition of spiritual progress. How free am I from compulsive behavior? And furthermore, especially as long as we, kind of hold that yardstick, and as long as we apply it to our lives in a gentle way, in a way that is not where we're not lambasting ourselves for falling short or for engaging in compulsive behavior, because that's the whole process of spiritual growth, is kind of observing that, right? We're gonna live our life, and then again, this image from Chogyam Trungpa that I love. It's like he says the echo of our awareness reflects back to us the nature of what we're doing. It's like we act, or we think, or we do, or whatever, and then our awareness kind of goes and pings that action or that thought back to us. And that observation process and noticing what motivated that action, where were we coming from, what brought us there. That's again, that kind of like summarizes the spiritual progress in a very simple and straightforward way. And I'm just kind of enjoying these, it's like these shorthands for how to receive my own process, what's really happening. And because compulsion is one of these things that it's really through aging that I have become aware of how compulsive my behavior actually is. That's the thing. It's time, and it's the application of consciousness. It's not just time. It does also require a certain intention and a certain willingness to receive that information. There's something about patterns of thought, cyclical patterns of behavior will defend themselves. They actually kind of they actually kind of arm themselves and defend themselves against the onslaught of consciousness. They don't want to go. They're, as far as the mind is concerned, this is either an efficiency, it's a pattern that has served us and that works, that is efficient at making a certain kind of decision or of knowing when to take a certain kind of action, and therefore it doesn't want to be replaced by another thought pattern that might require more energy to do the same thing, and or a thought pattern might be considered a sort of defense mechanism. It might be considered vital to our survival. Then they get really tricky to unravel. So all that is to say, there, compulsions have each compulsion has its own kind of reality, and but they all fall under the heading of compulsion, of automated behavior that goes, and this is kind of an insight that I got over the last couple days or weeks from Sadhguru. At some point he talked about, compulsive behavior is behavior that moves in cycles. If you look at all of reality, the earth spinning on its axis, the earth moving around the sun, the moon moving around the earth, there are cycles within the sun that are many years long. Cyclical behavior, cyclical action is in some ways the foundation of all reality. I mean, that's what the wheel of samsara represents, is the fact that all manifestation happens in cycles, and the goal of spiritual work in that tradition is to get off the wheel, step off the wheel, and not be bound by cyclical action anymore. Because why? Because cyclical action doesn't go anywhere. It goes in circles. So now again, that's a sort of very in some ways I feel like that's a pretty I don't know, it's a very non-negotiable or kind of black and white, because my sense is that actually a lot of times as consciousness enters the picture, it's not that all compulsion drops away. It's not that all compulsive behavior stops in an instant. That's not possible. Nor is it that all compulsive behavior is negative and therefore we're literally trying to just dismantle all automation and bring ourselves to a place of total in every moment. Like that's not the way reality works, and that's not even desirable, because if our brain didn't have efficiencies, didn't have shorthand ways of making decisions, that wouldn't feel like progress. It would feel like regression. It would feel like we were gradually being backed into a state of being overwhelmed by every decision we face. So that's not the goal. But little by little, to never engage in a compulsive behavior that is not simultaneously chosen. In other words, we're not doing anything automatically that we haven't chosen to do. Like if I learn a Beethoven sonata, I'm going to program myself to do that. It's going to be automatic by the time I play it. I'm not going to be thinking about every single note. That's not possible. It would be impossible to perform if I had to, with full consciousness, decide every single note of the way. There's got to be some automated, memorized structure there. But I've chosen to learn a Beethoven sonata, and I'm choosing to play it, and I'm willingly going on those journeys of those various trajectories and those various trains of thought, those various domino cascades of action. And that's a very different thing than not being aware that I'm doing something over and over again and not moving. So I guess I'm just offering this, to myself as a definition of successful aging is the gradual freedom from compulsion. It's the little by little learning what our compulsions are, little by little letting them go. I notice it in my piano lessons because there's a moment of frustration always. Right before I release a compulsion, there's a moment of frustration. And with Madeline, it's gotten to where I kind of I'll be settling into something and I'll notice my frustration, I'll notice my resistance, I'll notice that I want to kind of push back. But now that I've had that experience so many times, I also know, wait, this desire to push back does not mean that I need to push back. This desire to push back means that I'm on the verge of releasing something that is entrenched and that doesn't want to let go, that's going to battle against consciousness. And it needs to, more than likely, more often than not, when you have a wise, skilled person giving you input, and you feel that, more often than not, it's that thing needs to let go. That thing needs to unravel and release, and it's in the process of fighting that right before it happens. So, yeah, I'm finding it a helpful definition to kind of keep top of mind and a way of kind of a summary view of what spiritual progress is all about. So I offer you that. That is where I landed today. And yeah, I'm up in Santa Fe for a couple days, so I've got a little change of context. It's going to be really fun to be up here. And this is the city where Annalise was born, so she seems somehow very connected to it and very quickly comfortable here. So I'll be reporting to you over the next couple days. But I appreciate you. Thank you. I love you. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.